Today on Ag Etc., I visit with Laura Francisco, sales manager at Kansas Protein Foods. She visits with me about how her company is making strides when it comes to using soybean protein, all brought to you by the Kansas Soybean Commission. Then I meet with this week's Young Leader in Ag, Ashley Boehm. Learn how this 23-year-old took what she learned in the classroom at Kansas State University and made her own full-time photography business. Then K-State Research and Extension and Kansas Wheat teams up to bring you a video featuring common bunt and wheat. Finally, producers need to keep in mind a few principles to follow for post-weaning calf management. I visit with K-State Beef System Specialist Justin Waggoner to give you some easy tips to follow during this stressful time period. It's all coming up on Ag Etc. Stay tuned.
At Farm Credit, we partner with America's farmers who work hard each and every day to grow the food that we all enjoy. It's not an easy task, but it's an important one. Farm Credit is proud to work with farmers and ranchers, lending support in rural America.
Kansas Corn reminds you that E15 fuel is the right choice for every kind of driver. For the car enthusiast, E15 has higher octane. For the thrifty driver, E15 is priced lower than regular unleaded. For the nature lover, E15 provides cleaner air. For the shopper who buys local, E15 has more ethanol from our Kansas corn farms. Choose E15 for a higher octane, lower price, cleaner American fuel. Message from the Kansas Corn Commission. Learn more at kscorn.com.
This segment brought to you by the Kansas Soybean Commission. The Soybean Checkoff. Progress powered by Kansas farmers.
Welcome back to Ag Amy, Kansas. I'm Britton Rucker. The Kansas Soybean Commission is featuring prominent people that have close ties to the Soybean Checkoff program, and Kansas Protein Foods has been a big player in that program. And with me now from Kansas Protein Foods, Sales Manager Laura Francisco. Welcome, Laura.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Laura, explain the relationship between Kansas Protein Foods and the Kansas Soybean Commission.
So Kansas Protein Foods is actually a fairly new company. So we started doing business in 2018 based out of Hutchinson, Kansas. And our parent company is Kansas Ethanol. And one of our board members is very close with the Kansas Soybean Commission. And that's kind of how we established our relationship. And so we actually did a forum for the Kansas Soybean Commission last year, and it was a really great opportunity to just kind of see the different workflow and where soybeans can be used. So, of course, they're harvested, and you've got the farmer side of it, and then you go all the way to the extraction of the oil and the soybean flour. But where our organization kind of comes in is that the soy flour is used to create textured soy protein. And kind of the big buzzword that we use right now is plant-based protein.
Right.
So this facility has been manufacturing textured soy protein for over 60 years now. So it's nothing new. But I think the way that consumers are using the product is where we kind of are really evolving and seeing new opportunities and places for innovation and exciting stuff. So what our product is, we have a wide range of sizes and shapes and flavors of textured soy protein. So you could use it as a meat extender to reduce your cost or reduce your meat intake, red meat especially, just kind of overall improve your diet. Or you can use it for total meat replacement. So right now you'll see the Impossible Burger.
Right.
Soy protein is used in that. And then from there, you can also use our product for protein enhancement. So we have customers who will take our product and put it into a muffin, and something that was just kind of a nice treat to start can now be considered a protein product that you'll kind of feel more satiated for longer. So there's a lot of different options for usage. And like I said, when we did the forum for the Kansas Soybean Commission last year, I heard about so many different ways that the product was used. Soybeans, I mean, I had no idea.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where if we can take advantage of all the different uses and kind of get that out there and let people know about the product, I think that people will get more excited about it. Because in terms of food, soybeans kind of have a bad connotation. There's some bad information out there that I think has been expanded on in recent years, and it's a good product. It tastes good, and I think as the plant-based market expands and grows, the product will too.
Absolutely. And Laura, why is this partnership really vital to the ag industry?
Absolutely. I think that it's important. I think just kind of knowledge sharing. I live in my own little plant-based soy protein world, but to hear about, what was it? Somebody who sat next to me, they used soybean oil as a resin on cabinets. And somebody else, something completely different. I think that the more we're able to knowledge share, the more information we all have and different ways that we can work together and innovate and grow our own businesses. So I think the Soybean Commission, being a part of that association, allows us to work together and all come up with different ideas of how to bring the industry closer.
Absolutely. Well, Laura, thank you so much for being on our program.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. We really appreciate it.
I'm Britton Rucker, and this has been Ag AM in Kansas.
No one plans to get sick or injured, but when life happens, it's important you and your family are protected. Kansas Farm Bureau health plans are there to provide continued health care coverage to meet your needs. Choose from a broad range of individual and family plans. And if you're over 65, we have options for you too. Learn more at kfbhealthplans.com. or contact a Farm Bureau Financial Services agent near you.
The Kansas Wheat Innovation Center in Manhattan is rediscovering ways to get improved varieties and new genetics in the hands of farmers faster. Grower-led and checkoff-funded research initiatives are bringing about positive change. This grassroots leadership provides a strong voice in Topeka and Washington, D.C. Now is the time to partner with Kansas Wheat in moving wheat forward. Kansas Wheat Commission and Kansas Association of Wheat Growers. Farmers investing in their future and yours. Log on to rediscoverwheat.org.
This segment brought to you by Farm Credit Associations of Kansas, lending support to rural America, and by American Ag Service, your DuPont Pioneer dealer.
Welcome back to Ag AM in Kansas. I'm Britton Rucker, and for our Young Leaders in Ag segment, I have with me now Ashley Boehm. Welcome, Ashley.
Hi, thank you.
Ashley, give us a bit of your background.
So I did not grow up in agriculture. I actually joined 4-H once we kind of moved out of the city, and kind of connected with friends and made friends through that, and learned that that's kind of something I wanted to do. So then I started showing cattle, and I showed cattle through my junior year at the national level.
And that actually led you to attend Kansas State University.
Yes, it did. So I actually grew a passion for ag and fell in love with the industry and everything. And so I decided that I really wanted to stay in the industry. And so I attended K-State for ag communications.
And through that experience, you actually started your own full-time photography business.
Yes, so I have a photography and design company. It's called Western Heritage. And through there, I focus on my niche market of livestock photography, but also do portrait sessions, seniors, families, kids, anything like that. But then also in there, I do design work. So anything from custom ads or invites or anything like that, print ads, digital ads. So yeah.
Yeah. So anywhere from designing a flyer for a bull sale to taking their family portrait is kind of where you're at.
Yes.
So if people want to get a hold of you to take some photographs or do some design work for their operation, where would they contact you at?
Yeah, so I have a website. It's called thewesternheritage.com. I also have a Facebook page and Instagram, and those are both also Western Heritage Photography Design. So just go on there, reach out to me any way that's easiest for them to do that.
Well, Ashley, thank you so much for coming on our program.
Thank you so much for having me.
At Farm Credit, we partner with America's farmers who work hard each and every day to grow the food that we all enjoy. It's not an easy task, but it's an important one. Farm Credit is proud to work with farmers and ranchers, lending support in rural America.
Sure Crop Fertilizers was started by my father, Don Sherman, and my mother, Shirley Sherman. Family business that started in the 80s. We predominantly focus on plant nutrients and what we can do to give growers better responses with the fertilizer dollars that they do, and what we can do to make those things work better for the grower. We're based out of Seneca, Kansas. We work with growers in their soil analysis to figure out what they need, and then we can put those in a blend that gives them the best results, and so that we can deliver that direct to their farm so that they have those nutrients where they need them, when they need them, and so that they can apply them in a manner that's very efficient to them and works well on their planting systems and what they're doing. Sure Crop Fertilizers has been around for a long time. We always say we're big enough to take care of everything you need, but we're small enough to do it quickly. You can get a hold of us at 1-800-635-4743. Our website is surecropfertilizers.com, and you can always email me at Corey@surecropfertilizers.com, and with any questions you have, we'll be glad to answer and work with you.
Welcome to the Western Kansas Wildlife Travel Center, right here in my hometown of Oakley, Kansas. We're the front door of Western Kansas, located on 3 main highways, I-70, US 83, and US 40. And all those roads lead to history, beautiful scenery, and adventure, no matter which direction you go. We now have an IHOP. That brand that you've trusted up and down the road in all your travels is staffed with local folks, real people, just like you and me, and we're waiting on you to join us. So for fun, adventure, fuel up, fuel your body, and let's have some fun.
This segment brought to you by Kansas Wheat. Learn more at rediscoverwheat.org.
Welcome back to Ag Etc. Next, Kansas Wheat and K-State Research and Extension team up to bring you a video featuring common bunt and wheat.
Hi, I'm Kelsey Anderson-Onofre, and I'm an extension plant pathologist and wheat and forage extension specialist here at Kansas State. I'm going to talk today about some diseases that are seed-borne and have been a problem this year and in past years here in Kansas for wheat. So one disease that we've heard reports of in this past 2019-2020 season is the disease common bunt. So this is a disease that can also be called stinking smut because of the odor it produces during harvest. And it's really a problem that is only detected right at harvest. So this particular fungal disease will infect seed, and it will fill those seed balls with basically black spores. And those spores will break open, and they can infest the soil and also infest the rest of the seed. It becomes only a problem when you have a lot of this particular disease, or when seed is retained or saved for the next season and planted, and those spores can germinate and infect the emerging wheat leaves. And the cycle can begin, and it can really build up pressure over time. So one of the main ways to control this disease is to buy certified seed. But another way, an economical way, is to treat seed with fungicide seed treatments. And there are several fungicide seed treatments that are labeled for the control of common bunt, and we have a nice list here at Kansas State. The nice thing about fungicide seed treatments is they're an economical way not only to control common bunt, but also to control loose smut or flag smut, which are other seed-borne diseases that can build up in seedlots over time and cause significant losses. Most fungicide seed treatments are labeled for the control of these diseases, and they might also provide some protection against early season insect damage, and also protection against maybe damping off from some of the soil-borne pathogens like fusarium. That same fusarium that causes fusarium head blight might cause damping off of early wheat seedlings, and also protecting against some other early season fungal diseases. So again, fungicide seed treatments can be an economical solution to control some of these early season diseases and can pay off in the long run. So again, common bunt is a problem, but it is controllable, and it's best to control it year after year to keep those levels down.
Highways 40, 83, and I-70 come together right here in Oakley. Roads that lead to businesses, to magnificent rock formations, to scenic vistas, to places where legends were made. Roads that lead us home. Discover Oakley, the gateway to Western Kansas.
No one plans to get sick or injured. But when life happens, it's important you and your family are protected. Kansas Farm Bureau health plans are there to provide continued health care coverage to meet your needs. Choose from a broad range of individual and family plans. And if you're over 65, we have options for you too. Learn more at kfbhealthplans.com or contact a Farm Bureau Financial Services agent near you.
Kansas Corn reminds you that E15 fuel is the right choice for every kind of driver. For the car enthusiast, E15 has higher octane. For the thrifty driver, E15 is priced lower than regular unleaded. For the nature lover, E15 provides cleaner air. For the shopper who buys local, E15 has more ethanol from our Kansas corn farms. Choose E15 for a higher octane, lower price, cleaner American fuel. Message from the Kansas Corn Commission. Learn more at kscorn.com.
This segment brought to you by Sure Crop, liquid crop nutrition delivered right to your farm.
Welcome back to Ag AM in Kansas. I'm Britton Rucker. And as we're in this transition period with cow-calf pairs, producers need to keep in mind a few principles to follow for post-weaning calf management. I'm with K-State Beef System Specialist Justin Waggoner to discuss this more. Welcome, Justin. Justin, you actually talked about this at the KLA K-State Ranch Management Field Day, where you discussed how to manage calves into this post-weaning period, and it actually gets back to ranch revenue. You might explain.
Yeah, so, as we think about weaning, and I'm kind of one of those folks that I like to identify, what are some things that ranchers or cattle producers can focus on? One of the things that's always intrigued me about weaning just in general is, it's a very stressful time for producers. We think about it as being very stressful for the calves, but it's also a stressful time for producers. And one of the things that, I guess I never realized it growing up on a small farm ranch with some cattle was just how important or how much of an impact that weaning period can have on ranch revenue. If we look at, the primary drivers of what drives income or gross income on a ranching enterprise and a cow-calf operation, those are going to be the number of calves we have to sell, the weight of those calves, the price we receive for those calves. And as we think about the weaning period, when those calves are out on grass, things are usually going pretty well. We don't have a whole lot of problems. We don't have, too many health concerns. There can be some, right? But usually things are going pretty well. And then we wean those calves, and that's where we begin to get into problems. And if we think of, what happens if we have just a really rough scenario, rough weaning period, and let's say we lose one of those calves, it doesn't take very long for the value of that calf, even if we distributed over 100 head of cows, for that to be a significant impact on that ranch's overall, gross income for the year.
Yeah, and you're actually just trying to prepare those calves for this transition. What's important that producers need to keep in mind for this transition?
Yeah, you actually hit on something really good there. And I think we oftentimes forget about the weaning period and what it really is. I mean, we tend to focus on, we're going to gather those calves, we're going to wean them, we're going to, do the maternal separation piece. But another big part of that is, preparing those calves for the next segment of the industry. That may be a number of different things. It could be going to a feed yard. It could be going to a stock or backgrounder operation. It may be simply going to wheat pasture or getting turned back out on some dormant grass. But really, it's how we prepare those calves for that next segment of the industry and making sure that they are really ready to move on to the next segment.
Right, absolutely. And a lot of us cattle producers try to just do one step and try to make it the easiest as possible, but really having a transition period is worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a fairly common attitude in, on cattle operations is we've got to wean these calves. Let's just get it over with. we'll see how it goes. And we don't maybe put as much thought as we should into preparing those calves, and they're just, maybe doing a few things to set them up for success, I guess is what I would say.
Going into some management steps, what should producers really prioritize?
Yeah, so I think one of the first things, and I always put this at the kind of the top of my list. I mean, I work mostly in nutrition, so it's kind of funny that I would go to the herd health side of it. But I think having a herd health program on the cows as well as the calves, that's a pretty good step in preparing those calves and their immune system, and that's going to start with the cow. The second piece of this, and this is where I think some of our producers maybe get into a little bit of trouble, is, we know that there's a very high likelihood we're going to have to treat some calves when we go through the weaning period. And so, rather than, getting into that scenario and then have to call the vet and say, oh, I've got, 5 or 6 sick calves, what do I treat them with? What am I going to use? The other piece of that is, well, let's have a treatment plan in place. Let's talk to our veterinarian ahead of time. Let's be prepared. Let's be a little more proactive and make sure that we've got those things. We're staying on top of those calves. So it's not just the herd health, but also having a treatment plan to go along with it. And I take that away from my feed yard experience. When we pull a calf for a respiratory in a feed yard, we have a treatment protocol that we're going to follow. We have the products that we're going to use. And that's just something a lot of cow-calf producers don't always think about is, we need to have those products on hand.
I'm Bob Swartz, and I've devoted the last 43 years to helping Kansans reach their retirement goals and to protect the family farm. At Bob Swartz Financial, we believe everyone should be able to live the retirement they've always dreamed of. Our team of professionals can help you create an efficient strategy using a variety of investment vehicles to help you address your financial needs and your concerns. Bob Swartz Financial values commitment and transparency.
Highways 40, 83, and I-70 come together right here in Oakley. Roads that lead to businesses, to magnificent rock formations, to scenic vistas, to places where legends were made. Roads that lead us home. Discover Oakley, the gateway to Western Kansas.
Valley Vet Supply is devoted to providing information and professional quality products at reasonable prices.
Valley Vet Supply.
This segment brought to you by Santa Fe Trail Meats in Overbrook. Let us help feed your family.
Welcome back to Ag Etc. I'm back with K-State Beef System Specialist Justin Waggoner over post-weaning calf management. Right, and you touched on the nutrition side earlier. When transitioning rations or really any feed in any way, what's important to keep in mind there, Justin?
Yeah, so there's a lot of different things that go into that nutrition program for, newly weaned calves or into that program. If we think about, just all the transitions that are in there, those calves are used to consuming essentially mother's milk and maybe some grass. Some of these calves may have not seen a bunk before. So, aside from the nutrition, piece of it, I think there's also some value in, kind of saying, okay, can we prepare that calf for that environment? I'm kind of one of those folks where I think previous exposure to a feed bunk matters. We've done some research at K-State where we've documented that calves at receiving that have been fed in a bunk on pasture come to the bunk more readily on the first few days within a feeding facility. And so we know that previous exposure to a bunk matters. The other factor that I think on the nutrition side that we often don't necessarily think about so much is what the intake of those calves is really going to look like. A lot of times we talk about early wean calves as being a concern, and this is where I maybe first started to, recognize that we didn't realize how much or how little feed those calves were actually going to consume. A lot of times that first day post-weaning, we're looking at intake somewhere in the neighborhood of 1% of body weight on a dry matter basis. So if we have a calf that weighs 500 pounds, we're only going to consume 5 pounds of dry feed. That is not a lot of feed. And so if we look at that animal, young, growing calf, their nutrient requirements are fairly high. So at that low level of intake, it's going to take a ration or a feeding program that's going to be fairly nutrient dense for us to be able to meet that calf's requirement. especially not only for maintenance, but in most scenarios, we're going to be looking for these calves to gain somewhere in the neighborhood of 2 to 2.2 pounds per day during this weaning program for us to be successful. If we look at our marketing goals downstream, we certainly have to keep those calves gaining weight. And so, it's the other challenge with that is that the feedstuffs that those calves are probably most familiar with, and we talked about the dry grass scenario, it's going to be very similar to maybe a high quality grass hay. Well, those aren't going to be necessarily very nutrient dense. And so that's where the importance of that weaning ration, whether that's something that we've put together on farm or that's something that's coming from a commercial starter ration to get those calves on. And really it's going to be the targets, I would say, are, we'd like to have those calves consuming somewhere between 2 to 2.2% of their body weight on a dry matter basis by day 10 to 14 post-weaning. And that's still that's nowhere near ad libitum intake on those calves. So we're still working those calves up on feed and transitioning them gradually. And we're really going to have a ration that's fairly nutrient dense in terms of both energy and protein for us to be able to meet those nutrient requirements for growth.
Absolutely. And last question, Justin, where do you see producers fault most often in this post-weaning transition?
Okay. That's an interesting question. There's probably some challenges, in lots of different areas. If I look specifically at the feeding programs, I think a lot of times we might be a little bit too aggressive in how we feed those calves. It's not uncommon to see those calves, fresh calves coming into a new facility with some feed bunks. First day's intakes are usually fairly low. The second day, those calves can be a little bit more aggressive, and there's kind of this temptation to put all the feed that they'll consume in front of them. And sometimes when we do that, we actually get a little bit ahead of those calves. And so I actually prescribe to a little bit more of the theory of let's moderate those intakes a little bit up front. I don't want to call it a limit feeding program, but maybe a little bit more conservative. Yeah, a little more conservative approach, and kind of taking, okay, the first day we're going to be at 1% of body weight total intake. The next day we're going to go to 1.2 and kind of step those calves up with the goal of keeping those calves a little bit aggressive. And so there's a couple reasons for that. One, I think it helps us get them up on feed faster. The second reason behind that is I think sometimes that makes it easier for us to do the health detection. If we've kept those calves fairly aggressive, they want to come to the bunk, they want to eat, it's pretty easy to find those calves that are hanging out at the back of the pen and not coming up to the bunk or looking and expressing some interest in the feed truck when it makes that pass.
Thanks for watching Ag Etc. As always, I'm Britton Recker, and I'll see you here next week here on Ag AM in Kansas.